Hello, Memphis. I'm Ernest Strickland, President and CEO of the Black Business Association of Memphis. In a world filled with noise, we stand firm, advocating for the prosperity of our community. As the title sponsor of Sispreneur Stories, our involvement in Sispreneur Stories is a reflection of the serious work we're doing to redefine the business landscape in our city. May each episode be a catalyst for personal growth, resilience, and inspiration.
Today's theme is vulnerability, the secret superpower of women entrepreneurs. Research by Harvard Business Review indicates that authenticity is a significant driver of trust and connection, and that embracing imperfection is a sign of authenticity, with authenticity being highly valued in interpersonal relationships. On one hand, women may face double standards, where vulnerability is sometimes interpreted as weakness or emotional instability. This can create barriers to openly discussing their feelings or seeking support. But the creators of the term emotional intelligence say women tend to score slightly higher on average in tests measuring emotional intelligence, hence the term secret superpower. Today we tackle the idea of embracing vulnerability with the public relations Sispreneur, Keisha Whitaker. This month's powerful Sispreneur story begins right now.
All right, Keisha Whitaker, thank you so much for being here, you beautiful thing. Okay, so let's just talk about what brought you to become a Sispreneur. How did you know that you wanted to go at it on your own?
Well, first, thank you all for having me. I'm so excited to be with the Anthony sisters. And I would say the first inkling that I had was maybe in my early 20s. I was about 23 or so. And I said, I want to have a business one day. And it was just such a fleeting thought. I really did not think it was going to happen. And then I moved around. I was living in New Jersey at the time, working for the Ivy League. And it was just something that was just a passing thought, like, oh, I could have a side hustle. That's what I thought it would be. I didn't think it would be anything full time. But I ended up around 2008. I moved back to Memphis after living in Georgia and a few other places. I moved back to Memphis around the time of 2008 and the economy crashing and all that. And I think that is the time when it's best to start a business. That's when a lot of businesses are birthed during a downturn, economic wise. So that was really the reason I started the business. I loved having the freedom to do the things that I wanted to do with my time, or to budget my time the way I wanted to. And people were asking me to write articles or to help pitch news stories. I was always doing a little freelance work. And so I decided to just create a website and a business card and study and learn everything I could about starting a business. And that's how I got started.
And you have international PR. It's not just, I'm just saying.
Oh.
And I love that you sort of, sometimes people get so caught up in planning to start a business that they don't start a business. And I love that you said that you kind of just like went for it. You were like, all right, these are the things I love to do. I'm going to like just make a website and, just go for it. I love that courage.
Well, Janita, I will say this too. I had a cushion. I don't recommend people jumping out and just starting a business to start it and not doing their research. I did a ton of research, but I also had a financial cushion as well. So during the downturn, I was still working and I was getting temp jobs, but I was having really good success with FedEx and some other companies where I was able to do like communications or everything and stay within my field, right? So it was easier for me to kind of go that in that direction to start the business, because I was already still kind of working in it. It wasn't like, oh, I'm sitting at home with nothing to do, but it was like, okay, this contract is going to come to an end soon. So let me start figuring out what the next move is going to be. And so it was just really, like I said, I would be up all night researching how to start a business, but I already knew how to create a website. So I built my own website, created some business cards, and just started hustling, like getting out during the day, going to luncheons and breakfasts and meeting people all during the day and doing work at night and studying at night. So it really was something that you have to take serious, and because you can make a lot of mistakes. I had a lot of bought lessons too, which is
agreed. The best lessons, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Janita. I was just about to ask the same question. because I know times you'll see people just jump into something without maybe having that financial cushion. And the next thing you know, you're out there swimming in the ocean with no tether. So I wanted to just quickly ask you, in your experience, do you feel that embracing vulnerability is empowering for women entrepreneurs in their professional journeys? And if so, can you share a personal story that you think would exemplify that?
I think that is our superpower as people, women especially. We have some innate gifts that that are intangible. So those are like having intuition and having certain spiritual gifts that we can use that are innate within us that help us in our business, whether we know it or not. So
Right.
vulnerability is one of those things that I always say that it showcases who you are. It's the authenticity of who you are. And sharing that part of you helps you relate and connect not only to just people who are maybe going through the same thing that you've experienced, but it helps them trust you as well as a business owner. So the fact that I can talk about some of the challenges I had starting my business or going through business, and the first thing that happened to me when I started my business was, again, not knowing what what you don't know what you don't know. So jumping out there, the first year I made $7,000 in my business. And I felt like a complete failure because my goal was to replace my income at the time. Maybe like four. I was like, if I can make $40,000 just by myself, I'll feel really good. And 7,000 was very, very short of the mark. And then the next year I made 13,000, and I was just like still feeling like a failure because I'm still so far from 40.
I get it.
And
Yep.
then the next year I made 20, and I still was like still coming up short, but not thinking about it takes 5 years for a business to really make a profit, right? And I said, okay, I'm failing. This is not working for me. And I had a really deep heart to heart in the mirror. I stood in the mirror and said, are you doing everything you possibly can to make your business successful? And I stood there for at least 5 minutes, just staring and looking deep into myself and being honest with myself and saying the answer was no. And then I stopped and I asked myself again, are you willing to do everything it takes to make your business successful? And I looked again, and the hard truth was no.
Ooh.
And yeah, the
I
hard
didn't
truth
expect
was
that.
no. Right, exactly. The hard truth was no. I wasn't willing to put it in. It was such an emotional roller coaster. When business was great, I was great. I was feeling good. When business was down, I was down. Some days I couldn't get out of bed, just being real. Like it was
I get it.
it was such an emotional thing for me because you put so much of your heart and soul into what you're doing, and your name is on the line, and it's all you. Your reputation hinges on if I do a great job or if I don't have money coming in, I'm not doing well. I'm not good I'm not cracked up. It's not cracked up for me to be a good business owner because I'm not making money. And it was just all these feelings and doubts and things that were happening. And so once I answered that question, I just went back into the job market. And for 6 years, I went into the job market, and it was really one of the most soul crushing things that I did because my confidence was so high at the time I had the business. Even though those ups and downs were there, the confidence in knowing that I can make money for myself, I don't need to work for someone else to do it, was such an empowering feeling. But going back into that job market did really test what I was made of. But I was able to get back out there after those 6 or 7 years. I got back out there and just relaunched my business in 2019.
But Keisha, before you go on to that next step, what that factor? What was the thing that clicked in your head? What happened that made you say, no more, I'm going to go for it again?
What made me say no more was a moment where I revisited a situation that I vowed to never put myself in. So I would say around 2005, 2006, I was working and I had a really bad bout of anxiety and depression to the point I was having anxiety attacks that were attacking my body physically, and I quit that job in 2006 and decided, no more. I I cannot put my health on the line. Like if I have a nervous breakdown, if I die tomorrow, you know, they're going to replace me on this job, but my mom cannot replace her daughter. And
I
so
had a friend once who had that there was so much stress. The moment she walked in the door, she had nosebleeds. And that's when she realized she was in a toxic environment. And she left. And the thing is, not every environment is for you, even if you say this is what you want to do. And so you realized that's not for you. And then next thing, okay, so you
But what made you leave?
What made me do it?
Back to corporate.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the one that made you say, I'm going to do this again after the soul crushing corporate experience?
Right. So I was started having those same feelings, that anxiety that I was having. And it was to the point where it was debilitating. It was like I was so afraid to make a mistake that I kept making mistakes. And I kept going through the situation and feeling like this is not for like this. I don't feel like this is right for me. I felt like I felt incompetent in the job. And it was and even though it was in communications, it was in an industry that was totally foreign, like a new industry for me. And I've worked in several industries, athletics, education, politics, you name it. But this industry was so different. And I just had a hard time grasping that environment. And so before it got too bad, I said, you know what? This is just not a fit. Sometimes, like Kanji said, some things just aren't a fit for you. And so as I was driving to work one day, my anxiety was growing with every mile that I drove. And by the time I got to the parking lot, I was in a full-on anxiety attack. And I called my mentor, and she says, look, you cannot risk your health. Go in, do the first few assignments that you need to do, and write a 2-page resignation letter. Tell them you want it to be effective immediately and be on your couch by noon.
Wow.
And she had me so hyped. I was like, oh my God.
You know, I heard the Rocky song. Dun, 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 dun.
You know what? Can I just point something out that I have actually worked with Keisha on several media projects when I was a news anchor years ago. And I want you to know that. So what happens is, you know, every day you work in some capacity with someone in public relations. Whenever Keisha would bring anything to me, the research was so in-depth. The layout of the entire, all the logistics were completely planned out to a T. And I mean, it's like there are 2 people in my entire 30-year career that I had worked with that was at this level. And so it's just interesting. I just think you're kind of hard on yourself a little bit too.
Don't you guys also feel, let's talk about that. As women, I find that happens oftentimes in the workplace. What do you guys think?
Oh, for sure. I am women, I think as Black women too,
Yes.
there's this perfectionism thing that we have to
Yes.
always constantly prove ourselves, even though we are beyond qualified and capable. We are typically the most qualified person in the room and the hardest working. And we still get treated like we're less than capable. We're less than, you know, what we're delivering.
snap.
Our work is
In the
not good
past, oh yeah, let's
So snap,
we do,
so snap.
we do soul snaps to show support and to also say yes. And the thing is, there's this thing, you know, it's called imposter syndrome. You feel, even though you're perfectly qualified for something, you feel like an imposter, you know, in a space. Yeah,
For sure. I mean, I've felt it probably all my career. I've always been a person that's been driven by like being hard on myself. Like that's what pushes me to do more, but it's really very unhealthy. So I'm undoing a lot of that stuff in therapy and through constant work of talking life and speaking life into myself.
Thank you for that, because that makes me think about, okay, when is it oversharing? Like, when is it TMI? So I'm just curious if you had some insights on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I come from a world of seeing some women that say, never let them see you sweat. And then there's others that say, you know, share and relate to people. And I think there is a balance and a fine line, because too often when I was younger, I thought vulnerability was a total weakness. Even from
Me too.
From a kid all the way until like my 20s and 30s, I would cry only 2 times a year. I didn't believe in crying. I didn't believe in sharing my weaknesses because I felt that people would use them against me. But there is a line, there is a limit to what you can and should share. And I think where that line can be drawn definitively for most people is before and after. So if they're in my case, I can talk about some of the things and the anxiety attacks and the panic and things that I went through in my career and how that affected me, because now I'm in a place where I recognize that sooner, I can deal with it and I can cope with it better. So there's nothing that anyone can do to trigger me, right?
Absolutely.
If you're sharing things that you're going through in real time, be mindful of how much you're pouring out. We do live in a world where we're oversharing now. Everybody's putting everything on social media. They're crying in the camera. They're doing all this stuff. And I think it's just me being a little bit more conservative. I'm not a fan.
Sorry, that was great.
Leave Brittany alone.
Today's business tip is sponsored by Udl, connecting merchants with nearby consumers. Hi, it's Janita with your business tip. Embrace vulnerability as a strength and not a weakness in your entrepreneurial journey. When you feel those thoughts of imposter syndrome creeping in, recognize that you're stepping into new territory or pushing your boundaries. Instead of letting it slow you down, use it as a reminder that you're challenging yourself and growing. As women in the modern generation, it is important we stay grounded in the beauty of our ancestor strengths, let go of what no longer serves us, and believe in our capabilities and strengths. Connect, collaborate, and stay true to your purpose and goals. Vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness, and that's your business tip of the day.
I also believe that when you're doing communications, the role that you're in, you're talking to everyone. And so you have, unlike, some people can be in their silo, they can go to their office and do whatever they want in their office, but you have to communicate with everybody across the board. Therefore, your interactions and what you see people do, that's greater. Just like someone in human resources will see a lot more. And then you also being in public relations, people tell you what's really going on in their mind. So you know more than the average person about people's intentions.
Yeah. And I study human behavior too. I am truly a student of human behavior because it's about, I end up writing the things that other people say or they read that is persuasive, right? So I have to understand how humans respond to different things, the type of personalities there are, the different communication styles. So I'm very aware of how to communicate to people the way they want to be communicated to, but I'm also watching and looking at behaviors. I'm very observant. I'm a huge talker, but I'm really, really observant. And I watch my surroundings, I watch people. And because I've been in these situations and been burned, I can see it coming a mile away.
Okay, so I have a question for you on that. So do you find that as Black women, sometimes we're too stoic, or people who see us as stoic? And do you think it's because others maybe, I don't know, like they don't know we have this side to us? What do you think?
I think that we're often misread and misunderstood in the workplace or in society, right? It's, hey girl, we love your style, we love this about you. You want our rhythm but not our blues. You want to be able
that was good. Sorry.
Yeah, we're the least funded, but we have the most businesses. So there has to come a point where we have to unite and say, if we can't get it here, we need to pool our own resources and do it for ourselves. I'm really in the business sense tired of selling for crumbs when we can all sit together at the table and eat. There's no reason.
Yeah. Keisha, there's enough out there for everybody to be happy, everybody to be okay. And I think if we, as people of color, started thinking of it more along those lines, there'd be more funding, there'd be more opportunities out here for us. I absolutely agree with you.
And I think like when it comes to getting, whether it's government contracts or whatever it is, we're selling for the supplier diversity, like the dollars that come under the subcontracting, when 2 or 3 of us could come together and bid for that contract. It's just really thinking outside the box in different ways of how we can do things for ourselves and not so much worry about who's going to give us something or not. Know what resources are available, but also know how to think outside the box and leverage some of those resources in a way that no one else is doing.
We know that women, it's just really difficult. We have to be perfect. We can't be too vulnerable and be weak. You can't be too not vulnerable. And then you seem aggressive or assertive. Keisha, what has been your balance of finding that in between?
It's so funny. That's such a funny question. I think that it's been that emotional intelligence kicks in when you really start paying attention and reading. You have to read the room, you have to read people. And I think the balance comes in when you know how to move in and out of situations and rooms. Working in politics, it's been a thing where I had to just sit back and watch because I almost was supposed to be seen and not heard, right? In my day-to-day work, my job is to be invisible and to put other people out there to make sure they're prepared and ready to be in front of the camera, to get up and do a speaking engagement. I'm writing their speeches. I am writing their talking points. I am prepping them for media training. I am making sure that they are all around ready to be seen and ready for visibility, right? And so I'm often the person that's off to the side, taking pictures, maybe posting to social media, doing all these different things. And so it gives me a lot of time to watch and read the room. And I was fortunate to be able to, in a lot of instances, have the ear of legislators or, off to the side, And one thing about me, I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. And one thing one of my friends told me a long time ago, she says, people don't really want to hear what you think. They want to hear what they think they want to hear. So I had to remember that when I was in certain situations where people would ask me a question. I said, do you really want to know what I think? Like, yes, I want to know what you think. But
No, they don't.
Exactly. So the first time I did that, the first time I told them the truth and what I really thought, it did not go over well. And every time after that, I had to tell them what they wanted to hear.
Guess what? You just gave us the recipe in life how to get along with people.
Yeah. I mean, I have to be likable.
Literally, if you do that and you say what people want to hear, it just makes everything more copacetic day to day.
And it's really sad because people need to know the truth. And it's like they can't.
It is very, very sad.
And they can't handle it.
You know what, though? The challenge with you is that it's your job to tell them the truth. And so, like, how do you do that? It's really hard.
Sometimes I just say, hey, here's how it is, or this may not be easy to hear, and lay it out for them. In what I've done, because I joined Toastmasters in 2014, it has helped me tremendously, okay? And for people who don't know what that is, it's a public speaking organization that trains you in leadership as well as public speaking, speech writing, all that good stuff. And so they teach you how to give effective evaluations to people and do that sandwich method of something good, something to improve on, and then close it out with something good. And so I've learned how to make my critiques much more palatable and not just throw the whole book at them about everything that they do wrong, but I may give them a couple of areas of improvement at a time, And so I may not say, well, you did wrong, but I may say, well, I think for next time, maybe think about doing this or doing that. Or when someone introduces you, don't say what they forgot to say about you. Just go into what you want them to know. I had to coach people like that because I have to be likable to everyone. Like the media has to like me, my clients, and anyone who I come in contact with, because I never know who I can connect other people with, how they can help me get a great story done, who could be a potential resource for me. And so it's my job to really build genuine relationships with people.
because I'm finding, I've been in and out of corporate world, not really this deep in as I am now, and watching how important networking is and connections are. And I am really, one of the things I'm working on myself, particularly, is to try and get people around me that are like minded, that we resonate together. Because it goes back to your idea again that there's enough out there for everybody. And if you have the right people around, you can connect people, you can all do things. We could start funding things. We could start helping each other out. There are just so many different things that you can do with that. Thanks again, Keisha. You're dropping nuggets today, Keisha.
Oh, thank you.
Dropping nuggets.
And to your point, it's really important for us to think about how we are connecting with people. So early in my career, I fancied myself as like the ultimate networker. Everybody knew me as like the ultimate networker. And I would go everywhere from the NBA to, working for the Olympics and all these different places, and was able to build these awesome, real relationships with people that I still have to this day, because I knew I was going somewhere. For instance, you guys know who Jerry West is. He was a Los Angeles Laker, used to be GM for the Grizzlies.
Yep.
Phenomenal person, right? So this like NBA icon and legend. And I said, I want to meet him. I want to reach out to him. And I wrote him a letter. And I wrote this letter. It was so bomb, you guys. The letter was so good. And I remember talking to my boss about it. And I said, Jerry West hasn't gotten back to me. And he says, well, Keisha, it's Jerry West. I said, I don't care who he is. I said, if I put something in the universe, I expect a response. And 2 weeks later, he called me and we talked, and it was just amazing. And from that point on, I started meeting other GMs in the NBA, because I wanted to be a GM at the time. That was my dream. I was like, I know basketball, I know X's and O's. I used to play. And so I started all of a sudden meeting all these GMs because I was working in athletics, and I would be at different games in Philly and New York and everywhere. And so it really was like the universe putting all these people in my path. And that's what happens for us, is that God is the ultimate networker. He will put anyone in your path that needs to be there. And so I would before I go to an event, I would figure out, okay, who's going to be there most likely. I would take 10 business cards, and I would only talk to the people. I would only give business cards to the people I knew I needed to network with. And I would work all four corners of the room, and I'd be gone. Sometimes I shut it down, but most times I would network and try to move on. But
great strategy. Thank you for
absolutely.
I am literally the worst. I literally just like, I'll go somewhere and be like, hi, hi, hi. And then I leave with nothing.
But Kanji, you were always in the position where people needed you more and need you more than you need them.
And
right?
Guess what? I know now who just wanted a media connection. You can tell, who was there that needed what your job was versus, what else they're looking for. So, but I think the majority of people proved to be decent. So
I mean, you and I, for instance, like I needed you for a media connection, but that wasn't the purpose and the intent behind building a relationship with you. I genuinely believe in building real relationships with people that is based on human connection.
Right.
And so who knew when we first met, we had a 3-hour lunch meeting.
We did. We had
to say now, like our father used to tell us that you don't have to work with people if you don't want to work with people, that as a business owner, you have that capability to decide who you want to work with. And I'm realizing the more I choose, and I'm choosing people that I resonate with, people that I feel I have, like, we connect. And it's turning out to be so much better than having spent a lot of time on people that just took my energy. So again, nuggets.
Absolutely. I only work with people that I believe in. That's it. Because that's the only way I can do my best work. If I believe in you, your mission, your vision, and whatever it is that you're doing and promoting, I will go balls to the wall for you. And it's just so important for you to not only have this, as a business owner, to think about, yes, I need to make business, I need to do well in my business. I need to make a profit, but I also believe that it needs to have purpose. I need to know that I'm delivering a result for my client that makes them better, not just in business, but as a person. Like whatever I do, it needs to have an impact in several different ways.
And I think that, there's a view of vulnerability. There are two different definitions, and one is when you are vulnerable to attack, but then the other is an identification with others. It is authenticity. And so maybe, that is the differentiation, is that there's the vulnerable person who is sharing the imperfection and saying, hey, I'm not perfect here. We all have to work together. So, you lift me up here and I'll lift you up there. And so, that's what I think really happens in these interpersonal relationships. You are, you're a major PR strategist. You've been all over, New York, New Jersey, Colorado, the Olympics, the Olympic Committee. And so I just think of the vast array of people, like, politicians, athletes, everything. What is your top advice for, vulnerability and just finding that sweet spot so that you can, present yourself well, because you do help people with their image. And so, how do people find that authenticity so that, people can be, they're palatable to others?
I would say find that story that resonates with people in a broad way. So like me talking about, my journey of starting out and not making enough money and giving up on myself too soon and all that, I think a lot of business owners can identify with that, right? Me talking about having anxiety and depression and how that may have affected my journey in my career, that may resonate with someone else. And so finding 2 or 3 different stories of your life that you feel comfortable sharing and that you can tell in a way that is authentic to you and shows that I came from here to here. There's a before and there's an after, and here's what I learned from it. And so it creates this authoritative view of you, because now you can say, I've been there, done that. And people say, oh, okay, I see how this person has grown from this to that. And so while I feel like I have a long way to go, I really, really do, in just growing as an individual and dealing with some of the things and challenges that I face as a business owner and as a Black woman in business, I'm open to sharing those things that I feel would best relate to that audience at the time.
And it sounds like the things you share should be things you've overcome, and I guess there are some things that people like to see in the process. So like what you shared, you've overcome them, or you've learned coping skills.
Yeah.
Then there's the real time stuff that people like.
And see that, and that's the hard part. And I had, I talked to someone on my podcast about that, and I was trying to ask them, like, why can't we share what we're going through as we're going through it? And I think a lot of times people can't do that because they're in the thick of it, right? You can't see the forest for the trees, and you're so engrossed in trying to get out of the storm or out of the forest that you don't have time to say, I'm going through all this and this is what is happening and this is what I'm gaining from it. But I think that, like, even with me, anxiety and depression is not something that's going away from me anytime soon, but it is something that I'm no longer afraid to talk about, where I was very afraid to talk about it because I thought people would see me as weak. I thought people would try to prey on that. I thought people would try to talk, gossip about me about that. But it's nothing to really be ashamed of. Mental illness or depression and anxiety are no different than someone that has diabetes or just has some other type of chronic illness. It's something that is there and has to be worked on and has to be managed and has to be maintained. And so just like a person who has a bad day when their sugar is low, I may have a bad emotional day and I'll take time for that. So I think it's really being realistic about how you present yourself and the information, and not be afraid to stand on what it is you're dealing with.
Nice.
Absolutely. We also call that the why story. Explain
Absolutely. And wait,
why
Keisha,
you are where you are, what happened to make you where you are now. Because those triumphant stories I find to be the most inspirational and helps others. And most people aren't brave enough to do it. So kudos.
Keisha, can you just do us a favor and tell us how people can find you? Social media, your website, all of it.
Yes, you can find me at kwhitakerpr.com. It's my website, and my handle on Facebook, Twitter, or now X, I should say, and Instagram is K Whitaker PR. So everything is the same across the board. You can also find me at soarlifecast.com, where my podcast is the home to my podcast, and also on social media I am Soar Lifecast everywhere on social media as well.
Awesome sauce. So we're going to kind of start wrapping up and try and take this on a little bit of a lighter note. That was really eye-opening. And we're going to take this to our last part where we're going to do 3 fun questions. And we just need a one-word answer. You ready, Keisha?
I'm ready.
Okay. So if you could have dinner with any historical figure, alive or dead, who would it be and why?
My go-to answer is always Michelle Obama, but I think my new answer is Harriet Tubman.
Ooh, why?
Because this is the strongest, bravest, fiercest woman that I can think of that has not only done something so significant and historical to free people from the oppression of slavery, to the people that she battled. I mean, this woman went back and forth into danger to save people's lives.
So
like
I got to give you soul snaps on that one.
So if I could just sit down with her and understand that what she went through, if this woman could endure all of that, who are we to not stand in who we are as a people and women, and overcome and do phenomenal things? Like, what's being asked of us is nowhere near what she did. You know what I mean?
Oh my goodness. You know what? It's like, you're almost like, how can I have a bad day when somebody...
No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that.
No, I mean, I know. No, we're allowed. We are. But I'm just saying, it's like in that moment you can say, okay, it could be worse. It could be worse. So that it can help bring you back.
It really just reminds me that we as a people, and all people, come from a seed of survivors. Someone from every generation had to survive for us to be here today. And we are the chosen one that survived, right? We are the little swimmer that could. So we have to be aware of that and own that and figure out what our contribution is going to be.
Thank you. That was poignant.
Love that. Love that. Sorry, guys. Next. So what's your favorite guilty pleasure food that you indulge in from time to time, Keisha?
Chocolate. Lots of chocolate.
Dark, milk chocolate, white chocolate?
Dark chocolate.
Ooh.
That's how I like my chocolate and my men. Dark.
Ooh, okay. I love it.
I heard you.
Okay. That one made me blush. Next. If you could teleport yourself anywhere in the world for a weekend getaway, where would you go and why?
I would probably go to the Maldives. I just love being anywhere that's tropical, that's near water, blue skies, blue water, white sand, luxury. I just think that's the life I should be living.
For everybody.
Well, Keisha, thank you so much for just really, I'd say you were very vulnerable in this, and I mean, in the definition of bearing your heart and being open and authentic. And I just mean that in the best way possible. And thank you so much for being so awesome and courageous and professional and amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for even considering me to be a guest. And I'm so proud of you guys. This is going to be a phenomenal podcast.
Well, she's a podcaster, folks. You have to check that out. She gave you the addresses.
I wrote it down.
I know you have to. She's very insightful and very thoughtful about her topics and the research. So thank you, Keisha, again. And as we come to the close of this electrifying episode of Sispreneur Stories, we have been truly inspired by the remarkable journey of our guest, Keisha Whitaker. We hope Keisha's journey has ignited a spark of empowerment within you, encouraging you to embrace your dreams and take bold, decisive action. Remember, each step you take can shape your own path to success and create positive change. Thank you for joining us on Sispreneurs, where we celebrate the strength of women in business while nurturing our households. Until next time, stay fearless and keep igniting your own entrepreneurial fire. This is Kanji,
Aurora,
And Janita.
signing off.
off.
Janita, did you even say signing off?
I actually
I
did.
know she did, Angie. Actually, I think we all did it
They're
together.
haters. You see the hate, Keisha. You see the
Do
hate.
that.
Wow.
Do
I was
that.
first.
You can do that last line again.
course.
Just that signing off line.
Actually, I think it's funny, and I think I kind of want to keep it.
Oh, Keisha, this is kind of how it ends every time in an argument. Welcome to
Part of the sisters.
This is Ernest Strickland, President of the Black Business Association, proud to be your title sponsor on this empowering journey with Sispreneur Stories.